Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded. If you have registered for the webinar, you'll receive a link to the recording within a few business days. If you have questions, and we do encourage you to ask questions, you can place those in the Q&A or the chat feature. For today's webinar, we have a Windows migration webinar, and we have Jason E. Smith, VP of Alliances and Product Marketing with Liquidware, as well as Matt Boyajian, Senior Solutions Architect with Liquidware. I'll hand it over to you, Jason, to get us started.
Thanks, Kristen, and thank you, Matt, for being on with me today. And we look forward to this webinar today, Windows 11, and the formula for successful deployment and automated user migrations. You'll see today that it's arguably you're not even migrating users. Once you have them under management, it makes it seamless to onboard users to your next platform and also to know the user experience between the two. I always start our webinars with a little bit more about our entire suite, and then we'll focus on today's subject matter of Windows 11. But if you haven't been introduced to Liquidware before, or you haven't seen us lately, we are in the space of digital workspace management. And what that means is we can manage your digital workspace no matter how you deliver Windows across there. That could be physical desktops. A lot of people don't think about us for physical desktops, but we indeed do manage many physical desktops for enterprises around the world. Could be virtual desktops like Citrix and VMware's solutions. Also emerging ones out there for cloud hosted solutions such as Citrix on Microsoft Azure, Microsoft AVD, Amazon's workspaces solution, Nutanix, WorkSpot, and others that are delivering desktops in the cloud. So no matter how you deliver Windows desktops, the point is that our digital workspace management solution can manage all those users at a higher level than just inside your siloed stack for virtual desktops, for example. And then users can onboard to the next solution, or as you'll see today, the next operating system environment at any time. It makes transitions very seamless from desktop to desktop. And once these solutions are in your environment, it makes it easier to continually manage those workspaces. The suite is comprised of Profile Unity User Environment Management. You'll see a demonstration of that today. It is FlexApp application layering as well. Also, you'll see applications hit the desktop, even go between operating system versions, as you'll see in the demo today. And then Stratosphere User Experience, UX, Stratosphere UX, and it's digital workspace management across, digital experience management rather, across all of your Windows desktops. And we even monitor Linux endpoints with that. So if you've got Edge OS solutions like Stratodesk and iGel, you can even monitor that first mile of connectivity to your Windows desktop in the cloud. Once you have your users under management, they can seamlessly flow, as I stated earlier, from desktop to desktop, and it really eliminates migrating the user portion because you've managed the users across these instances seamlessly. It really helps when you have a work from anywhere solution. I mean, challenge pop up like we did at the beginning of the pandemic, sending hundreds or thousands of users to work from home, and all of a sudden they need a virtual desktop. You can do that, and you have business continuity between the two, and the users just hit the ground running because they have their familiar workspace. Even if it's across OSs, they have their familiar applications. They need to be productive, and you can know that user experience between the two desktops at any time to keep your quality up. So Windows 11, we're going to talk about in the next two slides this on about the pros, and then we're going to look at some of the cons. We're strong Microsoft partners, so I don't want to throw Microsoft under the bus. We love Microsoft Windows and the opportunities that it gives us to deliver customized solutions for users. Some of the pros with Windows 11 as it came to market last year was a slightly new look, a Mac-like start menu that can be centered right up in the middle of your bottom part of your screen, new right-click menus that have new options in there, and in some cases maybe missing options, but that's a con, isn't it? Integrated collaboration, so Teams is more integrated than before. It is focused highly on security, and that's why there's some new qualifiers to be able to run and be fully compatible hardware to be fully compatible, you need to have a trusted platform module, TPM 2.0, and then a secure boot in your BIOS is also required. That prevents malware from attacking the boot process, where you don't even have to have that enabled. It just is a checkbox in there. It may indeed run faster than Windows 10. We saw Windows 10 run faster than Windows 7 at first as well. Seems like sometimes those things slow down after time, after they put more and more features into the OS. But right now it seems to run faster on certain hardware than Windows 10. And just this past week, Android apps are available. We'll talk about that a little bit more detailed in a moment when we get to the next slide. Matt, any other positive things that you see about Windows 11 in the market?
Nope, you've hit the nail right on the head. More secure, a little bit faster, new quote Mac-like look. The problem is that a lot of those things are a bit of a double-edged sword, aren't they? Because as architects, as engineers, as all kinds of folks who have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis, do our users like change? And the answer is no, they usually don't. And when you take away certain amounts of flexibility, is that a step forward? So to your point, Jason, you mentioned that the start menu is now in the center. Well, that's great, but what if I like it on the left? Or what if I like it on the top? Well, you can have some of those things. You can put it back to the left, but a lot of us used to like to have our taskbar and start menu on the left-hand side of the screen or on the top. You can't do that anymore. And again, there's been issues with the clock. Sometimes they took the clock away. Sometimes you could hide it. Sometimes you couldn't hide it. So what we're seeing is growing pains, and then this should be expected for any new operating system, but it seems to be hitting Windows 11 a little harder than it hit Windows 10. And when you get to the cons screen, I think we're going to see why this culmination is kind of bubbling the surface, which is this release was done for different reasons than Windows 10 was. And this release was driven for different reasons. Yes, security is paramount. Microsoft is becoming a very security focused company. But what was the real drive here when we consider the fact that Windows 10 was supposed to be the quote last OS that we were going to see? The drive was hardware. The drive was hardware vendors were coming to Microsoft and saying, listen, you guys haven't released a new version of Windows in what, 7 years? We don't want this to be another Windows XP debacle. We got to move some hardware. We need a new version of Windows. And that was one of the primary drivers here.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes change for the sake of change is not good. A lot of times change for the sake of security is good. But again, just like before, that's a bit of a double-edged sword. So that's what I'm seeing, but I don't want to steal your thunder here, Jason. Why don't you take us through some of these cons that we're seeing inside of Windows 11?
Seemed to be released with a few bugs. I experienced this early on. I had a new hardware physical PC that came with Windows 10 the week after Windows 11 was announced or was released to the public, and it ran fine for a couple of days, and then I did a patch and it blue screen. So I immediately tried everything I could. It rolled back to Windows 10, and I'm back on Windows 10. So I tried to be an early adopter just because I had brand new hardware. I was like, might as well take the hit now, and get used to Windows 11. But in my case, it didn't work out right away. But in fairness, that was the first week or second week of what was going on. So, a lot of those things tend to get smoothed out. I think we're on the second or third release right now. There's a preview that was available this week. And in that preview release of the latest version, Android apps is an option. But the interesting thing about the way that they've addressed Android apps, and this may be more of a home user feature, right? Not enterprises, which we focus on. But you still may want to. There may still be some use cases for enterprises to be able to have a few Android apps on desktops. They limited it to providing it through an Amazon App Store experience. Now, I didn't look at that myself, but I can only imagine it's got to be similar to the apps. If you've got a Kindle Fire, which I do, and I love having it, it may be limited to what Amazon App Store gives you in that way. And those are just even though there's hundreds of thousands of apps in that App Store, there's millions in the Google Play Store. So it's not the full promise of Android apps. They're going to be limited in a lot of regards, and gaming, I guess, is one of the angles that I've heard some of the pundits say it may address some of the gaming things, because there are some games that you can get on that. But a little bit disappointing that you can't get the full Google Play Store. Even on my Kindle Fire, I have done a little hack to get the full Google Play Store on, so, because there's a lot of apps that I found I don't even, home automation apps and other things outside of Alexa are nice to have on there. So I've done that. The not all hardware is compatible. So it's interesting, they released Windows 11 in the middle of a chip crisis because of the pandemic, and for sourcing things like that, the supply chain is still massively messed up in some areas, and it's very difficult still to get the PCs that you need. If you're an enterprise and you need to order a lot of PCs to support Windows 11, you're going to be running into a roadblock. Now look at what we're seeing there in our research says that only estimated 44% of your current machines are going to be compatible. And we're going to show you how Stratosphere, at a moment's notice, like within one log on, log off, we can tell you how many of your machines are compatible for this checklist of Windows 11 qualifiers. We've got that in this presentation. We'll show you that. But that's a massive number, isn't it, Matt? If you're thinking that, what is it, 36% of your machines, if I did my math right, are not going to even be compatible.
Yeah, and it's not even just the TPM modules, it's the amount of memory is required is a little higher than it used to be, and there's hardware checks on that. The CPU model numbers are a little bit different.
56. 56%. I did my math wrong. I am awful math. 56% of your machines.
I was gonna let it slide, but whatever. Math's not my favorite.
No, you correct me. Anybody correct me at math at any time.
So the thing is that a lot of those older CPUs that are still perfectly happy running Windows 10 are arbitrarily deselected inside of Windows 11. And another thing in regards to the preview build that Jason mentioned a little bit earlier that came out this week that really upset a lot of people was suddenly, as IT pros, we're deploying Windows all the time, and we use what? We use local accounts to do it. So you run Windows 10 Pro, you say, no, skip the Microsoft Online experience. I just want to use a local account instead. And now, in the latest preview builds, they have ditched that. You now need a Microsoft account to run not only Windows Home, but Windows Pro as well. So what does that mean for the future? I don't know. Are they shooting themselves in the foot a little bit? Yeah, but one way or the other, we are going to have to deal with Windows 11. And it's because of the one word that has been kind of permeating this conversation, which is security. We all know at this point that security always wins. If we have something that's inherently more secure to the enterprise, we're going to be forced to accept it with warts and all. So while we're not crazy about some of these things, it is drastically important that you look at this stuff now, because at some point your security team is going to go to your CIO and CTO and say, TPM makes us more secure. Secure boot makes us more secure. These features make us more secure. We have to embrace it. So even though we're not crazy about this, you better start getting used to it now, because at some point it's going to be driven down the pipe.
Yeah. So we're not all negative on it. We think that Windows 11 is definitely coming, and you need to prepare for it. And that's the message of today's webinar, and we'll get right to that in a second. But we're even hearing about Windows 12 as a rumor already. So the point of today's webinar is going to be that change will continue to happen. You know, I laughed tongue in cheek right before we started today's webinar. I looked up the old headline that Windows 10 was going to be the last OS, and that was in 2015. And I said, that didn't age well, did it? We have Windows 11, and now there's rumors of Windows 12 already. One of them's tongue in cheek. That, what was the one you said?
2 TPMs are going to be required for Windows 12.
2.0 TPMs are going to be required. Like, that's not even possible.
No, that was an early April Fool's joke for those of you who are scratching your heads.
There's real rumors of Windows 12 already in the works. Will people like adopt Windows 11? We think so, but some may skip it for Windows 12. We're looking at the end of life right now, as far as we have seen for, I think it's 2025 for Windows 10 is the latest thing I've seen. So you got plenty of time, but Windows 11 is coming online fast. And we surveyed our users the last time we did this webinar, and 44% said they may roll out at least some Windows 11 desktops later this year. There was a small percentage that said that they would, like 11 or 12% said they may roll some out even before the second half of this year. But then another 44% said it would definitely be 2023 or later that they would look at rolling it out. User profiles are not compatible. We'll get to that in a moment. They're broken again. Let's get into the slides, because I know you're all excited to see the demo, and we'll have that demo queued up and hopefully in 15 or so minutes. So interactive slides. Hey, give us a shout out over in the question in the Q&A area and let us know when you're thinking your organization may go to Windows 11, or if you're going to skip it for now. Do you think it's going to be the second half of this year, or you'll start to look at it next year seriously? So let us know that in the Q&A area in the chat, and we'll look at those in a minute and let us know if you have any questions. So top 3 migration challenges when you're cutting over to a new OS. You need to assess, you need to know what's compatible. In this case, it is more important than ever before because of that massive number of machines. 56% or more of your machines may not be prepared to go over because they don't even check off all the boxes. Now you can ignore that or bypass a couple of those requirements, but it's not recommended. And that's because of the security requirements. So you may get a little higher compatibility out of that, but to be totally compatible, you're looking at a massive number of machines that aren't going to be compatible. There's ways around that, right? Desktop virtualization when running Windows 11 in the cloud, and a couple other things using an iGel Edge OS or Stratadesk Edge OS will get you around that because you're not running Windows at the endpoint, you're running it in the cloud. User environment, you need to think about, do you want to go ahead and harvest off your user profiles and start managing those appropriately the way you should be managing them in case you have a disaster and need a disaster recovery of an existing desktop? That's a current benefit, but a side benefit is once you start managing those with a solution like our Profile Unity solution, you can light up a Windows 11 machine at any time, and your user profile comes in, your policies will follow the user, and they'll have a 0 downtime cutover, especially if you're using new hardware. If you have to re-image that hardware, of course, they're going to be down for a bit, but it's only for the time it takes to get that new image on that hardware. User author data is something that often gets left behind, but hopefully won't get left behind if you plan accordingly. Make sure you have your shell folders redirected. It does not matter what mandate that you think you've put out there. You have users likely sharing and saving rather data to their shell folders, My Documents, pictures, and things like that. And yes, pictures and videos may be crucial to their job. Maybe they're in marketing and they have some things in those files. So you need to make sure those are redirected to a cloud file share or to an on-prem file share that is DR protected. And you can automate that process. We'll show you how we do that today. We recommend that you do it with cloud staging. Start to use cloud resources to do this. Cloud resources have advanced greatly in recent years. And everything I say about cloud staging right now is a methodology, but if you're in a secure location and you can't use cloud for end users, think about just replacing the word cloud staging for on-prem data center staging, okay? It's the same thing, it's a little marketing in there. We do support more clouds than any other vendor in the space, all 3 major clouds. So an adaptive desktop management strategy leverages centrally based, cloud-based staging to be able to put the profile up there, to put applications out there like FlexApp can do. Organizations can coexist different types of desktops, and you can lift and shift if you're moving from one platform to the next, say Citrix to VMware or VMware to Citrix or AVD or Windows 365. You can do that easily once you manage all this user data accordingly, and gives you that 0 downtime cutover. This is what it looks like in practice. Is the legacy desktops on the left, and that legacy may be that you're in a different cloud today, but you have a new plan and a new OS coming online. Anything on the far right. So we're going to manage those with our suite of solutions by doing, knowing the user experience and be able to assess. We do that with Stratosphere. We can harvest out the user profiles and the user author data with Profile Unity and put those up in the cloud of your choice. We can do the ongoing management of those end users because we replace and go far beyond group policy preferences with context-aware settings that follow the user and make things ring true uniquely no matter where they've logged on, at home or in the office where things are more secure. Their desktops can look different. We can baseline the user experience, and you can leverage any of those clouds you see in the middle, and then immediately when the users log on to the far right, they're going to be pulled in from the cloud, and you're going to be able to compare those baselines of user experience across there and The users will be lit up and have a zero downtime cutover if you've done everything appropriately and leveraged something like our solutions or done a longhand way around that. But that's cloud staging, or you could do that on-prem as well if you're in a secure environment, like I said. User profile continues to be broken. Yes, more of the user profile can be saved in the cloud through Microsoft and pulled down, but not everything can. And for that to be seamless, you need to think about your profile management. Making a profile stick to a profile disk, whether it's our profile disk or the Microsoft one from FS Logics, is not a solution to get around this. Both of those solutions will break in between these versions of profiles. You see here that we've got a brand new profile in Windows 11. It's still named V6. It's appended with V6. But trust us, we've already seen it. It's so different, it does not work V6 to V6 across 10 to 11. There's enough things, the start menu and other things have changed. And Matt, you saw this firsthand when you were setting up the demo, right?
It does one of three things. It will either A, blue screen, which is fun. B, it will sometimes dump out a message that says your profile is corrupt and the default profile has to be used, and then you can't change anything. What it does about 80% of the time is it sits there and hangs for a while, and then it loads a new profile. It says, I can't read this. I don't know what this is. I'm just going to ignore it and move forward. So it's a mess. And if you have FS Logics in your environment, because I do have customers who use FS Logics, and they say, well, can't I just take that FS Logics disk and move that from Windows 10 to Windows 11 or Server 2016 to 2019 to 2022 or Windows 11? And the answer there again is no. We've tried it personally. Microsoft's tried it personally. It does not work. It is, even though it's a quote V6 profile, it's not V6. It's got the same folder structure, but the registry is so massively different. If you try to take one and put it into the other, it will kill the operating system.
And let's keep in mind, everything we're saying about Windows 11 applies for Server 2022 as well. And that's the server-based computing. That's an old term, right? But the Citrix or virtual apps type of a solution, or even AVD through server, shared server, using that for a desktop profile is different too. A lot of times those stay in check, as you see in that chart. So how do you get around the fact that a regular profile, whether it's local or whether it's on disk, like with our own profile disk solution or FS Logics, we're not throwing them under the bus because we're going to tell you how we work with that. How do you get around that and have a compatibility in profile? Our profile portability feature set, which is there's a little bit of a screenshot on the right demonstrated. It saves off the profile from one OS to the next. In this case, Dan on the left with profile version A, let's just say it could be any of these. It's really, I think that's a Windows 7 screenshot, I'm pretty sure, but the argument still stands. When he logs off of one OS, we compress the profile before it's moved across the network. That's how we get it so fast. And we save it to a network file share or in the cloud. And then the next time Dan logs on to his desktop of choice, or the one that the administrator has given him, assigned him, even if it's a different OS, it is pulled down and put in the correct place in Windows. So app data and everything maps back up, all his contacts and everything, even if the folder and file structure are different, we literally will double check and chase down file paths and automatically in seconds at logon. This is not user state migration tool. Dan's never down. If he's logging into a new virtual PC, he literally cuts over in seconds for profile version B, and he could go back and forth. We do that every single time, and we make, so common question is, what about profile data that exists in the later version that doesn't exist in the second version? We'll hide those in two separate areas. In some cases, like in the old versions of Office, we will copy them and put them into the new locations, and you can still leverage them in the old locations as well. So I think some people have commented in. Kristen, do you see anyone commenting in here? And
we did. We received one message saying we'll start looking third quarter with a rollout for next year Q1.
Sounds typical. Thanks for the feedback.
Sure.
That's great. All right, so enough about the broken profile, but that's how we overcome it, and that's how you'll see the demonstration today. I'll get through these slides a little quicker. You can do an assessment. But the key thing is here, how do you know what machines are compatible running Windows 11? How can you get a complete inventory of applications that have been installed? And now's a good time. Are they even being used? Do I need licenses of all these applications in the new environment? We can tell you that with Stratosphere. And is there a better way to start delivering applications so I don't have to actually install them? Windows 11 requirements. These are just some of them here. And actually, this is all of them. But they're restated because some of these are compounded in two parts. But this is straight off the Microsoft website. And you've seen some of these if you've followed the story, but there's minimum requirements for RAM, for processors, for the TPM module, only one of them, as we talked about before, what the graphics card should be in the display, and so on and so forth. Stratosphere gives you all kinds of data. Now we can put this into a pretty Power BI report, but this is one of our quick reports that will tell you at a glance which hardware that you're running is compatible with Windows 11. We ran these on some old test machines in our lab. Some of these are dev machines running Linux only. So it's no surprise that we don't even have the 44% success rate among these machines that we sampled in Stratosphere. But in this case, many of them, as you see, are running Linux. We've got 2 machines that are fully supported, and then we've got some in the yellow area. But look across the top. This is every single qualifier that Microsoft has given you, and you can run this report with one log on and one log off. And it doesn't even have to be that. It's at least one log on, and then our agent is given time for it to report back. So this is a very quick assessment that you can do with Stratosphere. If you're already a customer, you can run these reports and know at a moment's notice what's compatible and what's not. So you start to come up with a plan for moving over. Okay, when you're assessing applications, out of Stratosphere, here's an application strategy report. We leveraged Power BI to do this report. In this case, we're looking at the total number of applications in the environment across all desktops, 61 there at the top. We're already starting to look at, is there a better way to deliver these applications? Flex App Candidates, 37 out of that. And then which ones are used by all users? Maybe they should be in the base image, and we've made an assessment call on that. So this is one way you can start to look at your applications. We also have an application installed versus applications in use report, which will tune and help you plan your base images as well. So application staging. Flex App comes into play here. If you're a current customer or you're looking at starting to use layering, Flex App is the only solution in the market that keeps applications fully dynamic. It allows them to be played back to any version of Windows as long as that application supports it. So it's package once, package at one time, go across Windows 10, Windows 11, even back to Windows 7 if it needed to. The server versions of that as well. So you don't have to repackage. So if you have any application layering experience out there, like maybe Citrix app layering, which has its place, we fully believe, for helping manage the OS and the base image. If you're disappointed about having to repackage apps, you don't have to do that with Flex App. They stay elastic across all desktops. This helps you reduce the number of desktop images and base images, or server images that you have in those environments. So you can go from literally dozens down to a handful, or maybe even one base image, and then allow these applications to be brought in through a layer, a dynamic layer across this, and be applied to specific users. This is a huge time saver for base image management. Manage your applications separate from the base image and keeping them clean. So if you want to know what the #1 benefit of Flex App is, it is keeping base images clean and making your job easier. So application compatibility and delivering, it's filter driver based, so the OS literally thinks it's a native application in there, so it has a high degree of compatibility. It complements strategies such as VMware's ThinApp and AppV, even MSIX App Attach, because of the shortcomings of those in the market, in the very low compatibility rate. For example, for MSIX, somewhere around 30%. Flex App is at like 90-something% for compatibility. So it complements those, the apps that you can't do, or if you would rather use Flex App, it can supersede those. Well, in the cloud staging, it can be part of that because you can stage your applications in the cloud and they be accessible to the new desktop when a user logs on. So how does Profile Unity stage the environment? Remember, for administrators of desktops, that your customer is your users. If you had a customer who you're working for every day, not all of us like to admit it, but it's the end user. We exist to serve the needs of the end user. Whether or not we like to admit it, that's why we have a job, right? So you need to make sure that these cutovers are very seamless. Can you capture the user profiles and play them back? Can they follow the user? Can you harvest off user authored data automatically? Can you avoid using something like the user state migration tool, which would bring that user down for a couple of hours at a minimum and lose their productivity? And how do you handle large profiles like the Office 365 cache and others? So we can handle that and then be compatible with solutions like our profile disk and FSLogic, so we can work in tandem with those. User profiles and data are not usually dynamic because Windows OS changes, like Windows 11, break user profiles, and a profile loss can cause a big lack in productivity. There's a help desk call that says that I've been provided a basic profile, what happened to everything, including my desktop wallpaper. You can avoid those if you have a way of restoring those automatically. If a profile or a profile disk becomes corrupt, you can restore them automatically with Profile Unity and not have those help desk calls. As said, user state migration tool is inefficient. It takes users down for at least a couple of hours. And, well, I'm just going to go greenfield. And a lot of organizations do. And if that's what you do, that's obviously the choice that you've made there. But there's going to be headaches from that too. Users are going to call the help desk and ask, why are they having to recreate everything down to their Outlook signature and spell checkers and so forth? So there's pains with that as well. And you're going to have those pains. The point is over and over and over again. Windows 11 now, Windows 12 is already being talked about, and we're pretty sure they'll probably break the profile even again. So yes, you have some tools out there that may do this, such as FSLogic and other things, making a profile stick. Citrix has some, VMware has some, but do they make the profile work seamlessly at every single login? And then again, you're not tied to those platforms. You can scale up anything at any time if you want to transition users over. We have, when you put Profile Unity into place, everything becomes very dynamic. The compatibility works across. You end the user migrations as cited earlier. Smart profiles are harvested off, not the entire profile, not a bunch of cached areas and junk, but the parts that matter to the end user. Policy management, it'll also follow the user. So we go far beyond group policies with the context-aware settings. You can really beef up your solution if you're only using something like FSLogic, because we will remediate that profile every single time. And if your profile comes corrupt with FSLogic profiles from Microsoft or our own profile disk, we will seamlessly restore it without a help desk call. Profile rollbacks are very easy to restore a profile at any given point. We back up several copies of the profile and you can adjust that. And the cloud staging is made easy with the support of all those clouds mentioned earlier. We automate that entire process, as said earlier. We even take care of the user authored data, as said. When you first run Profile Unity and you start to redirect shell folders, we don't just redirect shell folders. We actually harvest the data that's in the shell folders seamlessly in the background. We don't hold up a user logon. And even if it takes multiple logons, we'll keep doing that. And at the very next login after it's completed, we'll cut that user over to the new file share. And we can even hide the local file. So we encourage them not to use that. And this works with all kinds of cloud storage. We can redirect these files to an area where OneDrive or Dropbox or Amazon WorkDocs, Google Drive can pick them up and also keep them redundant. This is what that looks like in practice. Our folder redirection setting has this engine in it to sync to a new location. Have you ever seen this from another vendor? No. This is an exclusive feature and has been for over 10 years or 11 years from Liquidware, being able to sync the files to a new location in the background, limiting the bandwidth. You can exclude types of files too. Maybe the user's not supposed to be saving MPEG-4 files and things like that. So you can exclude those and also streamline the amount of data that you're harvesting Leave no data behind. So here's a little checklist for ensuring a seamless Windows 11 migration. Do that assessment with a solution like Stratosphere. Maybe you've already got a solution that you can use. Stratosphere has built-in assessment reports for Windows 11. Leave no mission critical data behind. Make sure that you're redirecting user folders and harvesting the data. Make sure that you prepare that base image based on what you learned in your assessment. What applications have been installed in the environment? Which ones were even used? You could pay for your entire transformation to Windows 11 by streamlining your application licenses and finding licenses of software that you don't have to renew anymore because users are not using them. And that's a common scenario for ROI and looking at our solutions. Making sure that you have user data availability no matter where the user logs on because you've harvested earlier is another way that you want to make sure that you've checked off that, and also to monitor and baseline the user experience between the two, making sure that the applications are also available no matter where they've logged on. That makes for a seamless migration indeed. Most exciting part of today's webinar is about to occur. So if you flipped over and you're browsing Amazon or something else, come back because we've got the demo going on right now. Matt Boyajian, ladies and gentlemen. And I stole his thunder, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Boyajian, Senior Solutions Architect with Liquidware, and we're going to do a lot of the fun stuff that Jason was just describing. So we talked about migrations between different versions of Windows. We talked a teeny bit about FlexApp 1. We talked about FlexApp. We're going to see all of that stuff in motion all at the same time. And we're going to start with the old standby that we all know and love, which is Windows 10. So I've got a non-persistent copy of Windows 10 here, which means it's never seen me before. So I'm going to log in and I'm going to make in all that stuff that Jason spoke about immediately attach itself to the operating system. So what just happened with all this customization that I see on my screen right now? I see my desktop background. I see a whole bunch of icons and shortcuts with a very specific look and feel. If I start digging around in the side of this operating system, what you're going to find is over 10 years of customization and data that follows me around wherever I happen to go. So in my documents, as Jason was mentioning, we can go and migrate this stuff for you. I have gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs of stuff that just follows me around wherever I go. And again, if I go into places like the registry, we're going to find the same thing, that I have just huge amounts of customization that has been following me for over a decade. And this particular profile has seen a lot of different revisions. It started out with Windows XP, and then I moved on to Windows 8. I hate saying it. Windows 8.1. Windows 7 was a mainstay for a while, and now it has Windows 10, 11, Server 2016, 2019, and 2022. All of those operating systems can share the same profile. And as Jason mentioned before, you can use this with FS Logics. You can use this with our own disk cache solution called Profile Disk. You can use this in the cloud. You can use this locally. It doesn't matter where you are. It simply works. So if I have laptops that are being managed by Intune, I can still run this. If I want to have a DR solution that goes to AVD or WVD, I can have my profile mirrored between those two areas. If I have 6 different versions of Windows in terms of I work with a desktop, a laptop, a VDI system, persistent, non-persistent, I work with XenApp, I work with Zen Desktop, and I work with the cloud, that's fine. We're going to work in every single one of those environments simultaneously. Now, a couple things I do want to showcase here before we go into the migration of Windows 11. Number one, I have huge amounts of applications that have been made available here. This isn't just about profiles. So yeah, they're all available in the start menu, but I don't like the Windows 10 or Windows 11 start menu very much. So we have a bunch of shortcuts that we're going to use, but more importantly, if I go into places like add remove features, we're going to find huge amounts of Flex apps have been pushed to this machine. Everything with a parentheses, Flex app, parentheses, that is a Flex app. And to what Jason was describing before, FlexApp is a very unique technology. This isn't like application virtualization like AppV or SVS or ThinApp. This isn't going to have the same compatibility issues that they have. This isn't going to have problems with device drivers or system services or COM+ or DCOM objects. And most importantly, it's blindingly fast. So as I run through these apps, all of these apps present different challenges to me. They might have right-click context associations like 7-zip does, or they might have constant updates like FileZilla does, or it might be Java and everyone loves Java. And Java is just a pain to deal with regardless of what platform that you're using. Or I might have high output DirectX 10 or 12 or 11 stuff that I need to do with my video players. Or I might be Google Chrome, which updates itself constantly and eats up all of my memory and has services that go and run and supports HTML5, including rich video. And again, we don't care about any of that. I might have something like Greenshot that goes and replaces my Windows print screen functionality. We can see that I can just go and click on that, and immediately I've replaced my print screen functionality. I might have something that requires admin rights, that requires device driver access, like something like, for example, Image Burn. I might have tons of little apps that I need access to all the time, like WinRAR and WinSCP and WinDirStat and VLC and TerraCopy and PuTTY and PuTTyGen and Notepad, and all this stuff just runs, and it runs very quickly. So what Jason's talking about when he says the idea of a modular or a puzzle piece of not just your profile, but your applications, this is what he's talking about, is that it shouldn't matter where I go, what I log into, what I run. As a user, my stuff should just work. My data should be there, my documents should be there, my app should be there, and it should not matter. Now, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? Because we've been led to believe for the last 20 years that what I'm discussing is not possible, especially with different profile versions, OS versions, application versions. And that should mean that over time, these things have gotten harder to do and not easier. And the real answer to that is not for us. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to actually go through a whole carousel of operating systems here. So we just ran that against a non-persistent copy of Windows 10. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use Server 2019. So are there going to be some differences here? Yeah, we're going to see Server Manager pop up. But other than that, my experience should be exactly identical as what I saw in Windows 10. So I have the same profile, I have the same applications, I've got the same desktop background, I've got the same everything that I just saw before, with the exception of, well, there's Server Manager poking its ugly head out. So we're just going to minimize that. But let's go back into the system for a bit and see what the differences are. I still have all my documents with my gigs and gigs and gigs worth of data. I still got my full start menu with all the stuff that we expect to see in it before. I've still got all my Flex app shortcuts, and all this stuff works exactly the same way that it did in Windows 10. So if I go and fire off some of those applications that we fired off, that's easy for me. So now I have a profile that exists in Server 2019 and Windows 10, but that's not why you're here, is it? You're here to see how this works in next generation operating systems. So instead of playing around in Server 2019, we're now going to jump over to Windows 11. And this is a later copy of Windows 11. Jason mentioned that he was running some old stuff that first came out. I have been keeping up to date on this, so you will see all the newer functions of Windows 11 in here. I am an optimization freak, which means a lot of times I like running things faster, so I will remove parts of Windows that I don't like. The bad news here is the old way of doing things in Windows 10 of maybe stopping the app readiness service like we used to do to stop the Windows Store from processing, and bulk removing applications so they would not process at all. That you can't do anymore. Modern apps are now a part of Windows. So it used to be in Windows 11, for example, or in Windows 10, for example, if I just jump back into Windows 10, that all of these things, the start menu and the taskbar and all this stuff, these were what we know as classic apps. They were just straight up executables. They weren't really complex at all. And in Windows 11, that has changed. So if I right click on my taskbar now, this is a modern app. Taskbar settings is not a classic executable, it's a modern app. The start menu is a modern app. Windows security is a modern app. My network connections are a modern app. Audio is a modern app, meaning that we're transitioning to a new period of Microsoft where they're embracing this whole UWP methodology deploying things. So what does that mean for Profile Unity? And what does that mean for FlexApp? And the answer is nothing. Everything is still going to function exactly the same way that you expect. Yeah, the look and feel is a little bit different. I have dark mode enabled by default and all that fun stuff. And yeah, my start menu kind of stinks, and you can see I ripped out a bunch of their stuff. But everything else stays exactly the same. Most importantly, the applications that I run from one operating system to the other stay exactly the same. So here's one good old friend 7-zip. And if we go and we fire up Java, Java is still going to work. And as I run through these, what do we notice? That everything stays the same. Now, what do users hate? Users hate change. Users don't want change. So the more we can mitigate against that change, the more likely we are to save people a whole bunch of time and not having to retread. Do I remember what my desktop background was? Do I remember how to do all this crazy stuff that I did before? Am I going to lose some of the data that I had? All of that stuff goes away. And we also have to remember that with this product, we are designed to be fault tolerant and redundant. So even if things like, for example, the profile Unity server goes away, I don't care. Even if I have a loss to my Flex app packaging console or my Flex app systems, I don't care. This is designed to be resilient. This is designed to be redundant, and this is designed to work that way from the ground up. Now, we've gone through some fun applications. We've run some fun stuff in terms of the profile, but what if we have some real challenges that we are faced with? What if we have applications that simply can't exist on the same operating system? And a real good example of that is if I have LibreOffice and OpenOffice fighting for two different versions of the same DLL. Well, we don't care. I can run both of them side by side and they are going to function just fine, because our filter driver is going to make sure that the DLLs that I need are swapped in correctly every time. Just the same way that we're making sure that your profile is swapped in correctly when you log into the system. Now, so far, this has been a lot of magic tricks of saying, hey, this just works between different versions of Windows. What we're going to do now is we're going to peek a little bit behind the covers, and we're going to say, all right, what does this look like on the back end when I'm looking at profile disk and portability and all these things? So portability is the engine that Jason was describing earlier that keeps you out of trouble with different versions of Windows. So all these things here that live in the root of this folder, these are generic objects of the profile that can coexist with any version of Windows I want. So this right here, this is third-party apps. So that represents what happens in my HKey current version software, current user software version of the registry. So all the stuff here that defines how my application settings work, that's captured in this tiny little compressed file, 300 kilobytes in size. My actual registry object is around 8-9 megabytes. So that's a huge amount of compression. Jason stated earlier, this is one of the reasons why we are so fast, is that heavy amount of compression that we use to make sure even if you're low on IO or if you're pushing this to the cloud, it should still be fast. And all the things you see below that are exactly the same way. This is my app data section of HKey, well, not even the registry, but in the file system of users app data local and users app data roaming. I am compressing this and pulling out the caches to keep it as efficient as possible. These are my certificates. This is my Edge Chromium stuff. This is my Google Chrome stuff. This is my old school Internet Explorer stuff. All of it is designed to work in any version of Windows. And by segregating out the pieces that are not compatible, we're saying, hey, these tiny two little pieces of Windows 11 like active setup, they won't work. This is going to blue screen your operating system if you inject it. So what we do is we do all the legwork for you. We've already got 20 plus years of experience working with Windows profiles. We have millions of seats of customers using this, and we've learned what works and what does not work. So all this stuff is out of the box, meaning that all I have to do is literally stand up a profile Unity console, and all of these things will be given to you by default. You are given our 20 years of product maturity out of the box by just installing the product. So for example, if I log into my console, what you're going to see is a configuration that's been designed and deployed for me. So I'm going to log in with my ID and I go and do that. And here you go. These are my configurations. And this is what has defined everything for Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows 7, Server 2016, 2019, 2022. It's all in here by default. I don't have to go jumping through hoops. I don't have to go do everything special. But what if you're more complex than this? What if you're already an existing FS Logics shop? Like Jason mentioned before, you can go and rebuild those FS Logics disks. And what if, to make things even worse, you've been given a directive by your company to do this with not just 2016, 2019, Windows 10, and Windows 11, but also Server 2022, which is brand new. And again, just like everything else, that is no problem for us. So you can see here, I've actually got Server 2022 running with FS Logics and Profile Unity. So if I go and log in to Server 2022, which I'm going to do right now with my non-persistent account, I have FS Logics, which you can see fly across the screen there, but I also have the protection of Profile Unity. So if that disk gets destroyed, I can rebuild it on the fly with no loss of data whatsoever. And I know if you're an FS Logics customer, that's a constant problem of disks get corrupted. What can I do to fix it? Or I can't move between versions of Windows. What can I do to fix it? We've
Matt,
already
there's
got
actually
you
a
covered.
question that came in that you're basically answering.
Cool.
The attendee was said, can you describe when this portability runs with FS Logics, if that's what I'm using?
Yeah, so I tell you what, let's run through a real quick disaster case. Let's go, and I'm going to do something horrible to this machine. I'm just going to turn it off with FS Logics running. And now I'm going to open up my computer management, and I'm going to go and find that open FS Logics disk, and I'm going to kill it. And you can see it's right here. We're going to go find it. There's my Flex app. There's my FS Logics for Server 2022. I'm going to close all those. So now they're all closed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and navigate to my Profile Unity, FS Logics Server 22 profile, and I'm just going to kill it. So goodbye, it's gone now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to restore that snapshot for Server 2022, because again, it's non-persistent. I'm going to fire it back up, and I'm going to log into it. And I'm going to show you what happens when I rebuild that disk on the fly. And it's also going to show you exactly how the order of operations works. So what we're going to do is log in, and what you're going to see is a slight delay as that FS Logics disk is getting created again. So it takes a little longer for FS Logics to create the disk. Now ProU runs, and now ProU injects the profile data into that disk. And what do we wind up getting? The exact same experience that I had before. Same apps, same profile, same desktop background, same folders and shortcuts on my desktop. Everything just works. That's
No call
the way
to the
we should
help
approach
desk by the end
it.
user.
No, we should just be able to just destroy the disk, heal the disk, whatever's wrong with the disk, I don't care. I should be able to go and rebuild that.
And it
on
works
fly.
the same way with our own profile disk. So you can use our profile disk or the FS Logics one. It restores the same way. So it's like built-in DR for an FS Logics or our Profile Unity profile disk, the way that works. And the side effect is that it's also, that's what makes it compatible, that portability engine, across OS versions, which is not possible with FS Logics or our own profile disk.
Right. So the question I usually get in regards to that is, what should I use? Should I use FS Logics? Should I use Profile Disk? Is one better than the other? There's really only two things to talk about there. Number one, multi-session support. FS Logics has it, but Microsoft doesn't support it. So if you want multi-session support with a cache disk, we have it, which means same version of Windows. I can log into 2, 3, 4 copies. I can share that cache disk profile across it. The other thing is, we're a teeny bit faster than FS Logics. So if speed is important to you, come talk to us, especially when you're running Windows. You will find that base functionality is a little quicker. Now,
We've got a couple more questions after you.
Sorry. Yeah, sure. There is one more thing I did want to cover, and that's if we have a minute to do so, which is we have not talked much about FlexApp 1. Would you mind if I just spend 2 minutes talking about that, Jason?
Yeah, well, that's in
okay?
relation to this question.
Okay.
What about desktops that are sometimes remote? Does this still work for them? And of course, I think they're talking about the profile piece and FlexApp.
Yeah, so that's a great question. What do we got? We got an ISO that's not part of the system. Let's go fix that real quick. So in regards to that question, we are designed to function equally well in those environments where I'm connected or disconnected. So how do we do that? Well, number one, we give you the ability to either use VPN or cloud. So if I have a connection, then that's fine. But what about applications? So that the profile piece, not to minimize that, but the profile piece is relatively easy. If I'm disconnected, you use your profile. If I see the internet, I can upload and download that information directly to the cloud through Amazon S3, Google Buckets, or Azure Blob Storage. So again, not to minimize that, but that's simple for us to do. The problem is applications, because especially if you're using Intune to manage systems, getting apps down to systems is just plain awful. Because first you got to get the app down, then you got to run the installer over low bandwidth connections. It's awful. And then setup takes absolutely forever. But what if you could chop almost all of that out? So what if I could have an automatically compressed system that had all my data of the application installed for me ahead of time? Well, that's FlexApp 1. So what I have here, right down here, is a bunch of FlexApp 1 executables. Got 2 of them. And there's about 2 gigs worth of data here, about 2.3. So if I copy this from A to B, we're going to see these applications go from A to B, just the same way that Intune would pull an application executable over. But A, these are highly compressed, which means less data to be transferred. And B, once these executables are here, there is no installation overhead, meaning that each one of these executables that I've just brought over contains about 25 separate applications per. So I just added 50 applications to this machine within 2 seconds. So all the apps I was playing with earlier, in fact, quite a few we didn't even see, are now part of this system. So here, 7-Zip's now part of the OS, and if I run Google Earth Pro is now part of the OS, and you can see it's going to go talk to Google and give me this cool little globe thing. And yeah, I know you want DirectX, so we're going to tell it, yeah, you can use DirectX. So all of these programs are now part of this system, even if I disconnect from the network, which is really cool, because that means that Road Warrior laptops are covered from both a profile perspective as well as an application perspective. And if that machine gets lost or stolen or destroyed, do I care? No, because A, it's already encrypted, and B, I've got your profile and I've got your data. Have them log into anything, Cloud Machine, VDI, another laptop that I drop ship to your house, and all your stuff is just there. So that is the full gamut of everything I wanted to show off today. It includes online, offline, FlexApp, Profile Unity, migrations, 6 different versions of Windows, and what happens with Windows 11. So Jason, the floor is yours. Are there any questions you'd like to answer?
Thanks. There is a question. I'll answer it. We're planning on rolling out iGel clients. Will this work for those? The answer is yes. And the parts of our essential suite that would work on that is Stratosphere mainly, because Profile Unity and FlexApp will run on your cloud-based desktops. The likely scenario for using iGel OS is to get to a on-prem or cloud-based desktop, and that's where Profile Unity and FlexApp would run in that Windows environment. And Stratosphere could run in that Windows environment in on-prem cloud or in the cloud. It's in the Windows environment. But Stratosphere on the endpoint itself can run on a Linux machine. So the iGel machines are Linux-based, and so are some of the other thin OSs in the market. And we have purpose-built agents for that, so we can see that first mile of connectivity. So for your iGel thin OS, maybe on a laptop for a work from anywhere user, for example, or maybe in a hospital on a thin client, we can see the network connectivity, even Wi-Fi connectivity, how far they are likely from the closest router. We can see a lot of metrics on even the RAM and CPU used on those machines to come up with one composite user experience metric within Stratosphere. So we work quite well in those scenarios. We'll continue to look for any other questions. Kristen, did you see any that we didn't get to today yet?
No, I don't think so. I did see someone else come in and say that for Windows migration, they're looking at 2023 the earliest. Potentially, they may skip it if Windows 12 is on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay. Good feedback today. Great questions. Thank you for giving us the feedback on when your organization plans to go. As I talk about some of these things, anybody else can continue to chime in. We'll continue to look for questions there. Wanted to make you aware of some resources out there. If you're not already a customer of Liquidware, you can go out there and you can download today and be trying any of these 3 solutions we talked about. Just fill out a quick form, and within seconds, you'll be downloading the solution of your choice or all of them. And they're easy to stand up, trust me. Even a marketing guy can do it, and I've done it myself over the years several times in my own lab environment based on VMware Workstation and Hyper-V. Spun up some machines myself and played with it. As long as you've got an environment, a test environment that has AD in it, a couple machines and a server, you're good to go to test them in a small environment. So we encourage you to do that. We are sold through a network of qualified partners that we're very proud to partner with. And if you want to be introduced to a partner near you, let us know. We'd be happy to do that. And they can even provide localized training and support to augment the services that we offer. Our website and our community links are seen here on this page. And I'd like to remind you that we have a lot of events. We're coming back in person this year, and they're going to be some near you this year. And Kristen's working hard on a program called Liquidware Live. We've got an upcoming one in Atlanta soon. We're going to be doing things like getting a box in a stadium near you to be at a game or maybe at a nice steak restaurant, things like that. We look forward to seeing you in person. The next trade show we're doing is HIMSS, the Healthcare Information Management Show. VMworld possibly is back this year. We just found out, so we might see you that in August. We're also heavily involved in the CUGC and the VMUGs. We just did a couple of virtual ones for both of those, but the CUGCs have some physical events this year. So we look forward to seeing you out and about safely, and we hope that you're safe. But we look forward to a lot of face-to-face meetings resuming this year, and we hope that you're able to participate in some of the activities we have to offer. I don't think I see any other questions coming in. So with that, I'd like to thank Matt. I'd like to thank Kristen and the entire team over here at Liquidware for helping us put this webinar together. But I'd most like to thank the attendees today for participating in the Q&A, and would encourage you to reach out to us and let us know if there's anything that we can do for you with the contact information you see on the screen. Kristen, any closing thoughts that I didn't cover?
No, I think you covered everything. Thanks so much. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Matt, for a great Windows migration discussion today. And just keep an eye out in your email within a few business days for a link to the recording. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.